I never thought I would be that woman, the one who secretly watches her husband, wondering if the love of her life has someone else. But here I was, sitting alone in the faculty lounge after class, staring at my phone while trying to push away the gnawing feeling in my gut and failing miserably. My name is Hannah Walker. I'm 33 years old, a first-grade teacher at a small elementary school in Portland, Maine. I love my job. I love my students. And I used to love my life with an easy kind of certainty. For almost 10 years, my husband Daniel and I built what I thought was a happy, stable marriage. We had our ups and downs, sure, but we always had each other. Or so I believed. Lately, something had shifted. Daniel had been different for months now. More distracted, more secretive, and constantly glued to his phone. He had always been an honest, hard-working man, a lawyer with a calm way of handling everything from difficult clients to household problems. But suddenly, he was taking frequent business trips I had never heard of before, often overnight, and he never shared details. He would step outside to answer calls, whispering into his phone while pacing on the porch. And when he came back inside, he would smile too brightly, as if he was performing happiness for me. It was subtle at first, something I could have ignored if not for the feeling in my chest every time he locked his phone as soon as I entered the room. Daniel had always been relaxed about his phone, leaving it on the kitchen counter or next to me on the couch. Now it was like an extension of his body, always in his pocket or face down on the table. I tried telling myself I was imagining it. Maybe work was simply overwhelming him. Maybe the changes were all in my head, triggered by stress from school or lack of sleep. But then my best friend, Lily Harper, planted the thought I had been too scared to say out loud. "You sure he's not seeing someone?" she asked one Saturday morning over coffee. Lily is 32, a single mom, and one of the strongest women I know. She was also left pregnant and alone by a man who swore he loved her, so her trust in men had been shattered years ago. She still carried that wound in her voice, even when she tried to hide it. "Hannah, I'm telling you, these sudden business trips, the phone glued to his hand, the weird smiles. I've seen it before. I lived it." I hated that her words found a home inside me. They latched onto every memory of Daniel coming home late, every vague text message he refused to explain, every distant look when he thought I wasn't watching. The worst part, I didn't know if Lily was wrong. I stared at the wedding ring on my finger that evening as Daniel packed another suitcase for yet another overnight client meeting. He smiled when I asked where exactly he was going but gave me no clear answer. I forced myself to smile back, even though something inside me ached so hard I wanted to scream. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But a seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing fast, twisting itself into every thought I had. I lay awake at night imagining him with another woman, laughing, touching, living a life I didn't know about. And once that kind of image forms in your mind, it's almost impossible to erase. I loved Daniel, but for the first time since I met him, I wasn't sure if he still loved me. And that uncertainty, it was enough to make me do something I never imagined I would. Before all of this, before the secrecy, the late-night phone calls, and the hollow smiles, Daniel was my safe place. We met when I was 21, still in college, still figuring out who I wanted to be. I was the shy girl who always sat in the back of the lecture hall with my notebooks perfectly organized but hardly ever raised my hand. Daniel, on the other hand, was impossible to ignore. He had this magnetic presence, not loud or arrogant, but warm and full of life. Back then, he wasn't a lawyer. He was a musician, playing guitar in a small band that performed in little bars and coffee shops along the coast. I met him one rainy Friday evening in a cafe by the harbor. I was there studying for an exam, trying to block out the storm outside, when his voice cut through the chatter. He was on stage with a guitar, singing a cover of a song I loved. Something about the way he sang, calm but full of soul, made me look up. And then he looked at me, right at me, and smiled. After the set, he walked straight to my table. "You looked like you needed a break from whatever you're reading," he said with that same easy grin. I was blushing so hard I could barely answer. We talked until closing time, and I left that cafe knowing my life had just shifted. From that night on, we were inseparable. He wrote me little songs on his guitar. I made him study flashcards for his law prerequisite classes when he decided to apply to law school. When I found out I was pregnant a year later, I panicked. I thought it would derail his dreams. But Daniel didn't hesitate. He said, "Then we build a dream together. You, me, and this baby." He gave up the band. He gave up late nights in crowded clubs and the possibility of a music career because he wanted stability for us. He went to law school and worked part-time, juggling classes and jobs while I finished my teaching degree. It was hard. Some days we barely had enough money to cover groceries. But we were happy because we had each other. I still remember the day Noah was born. Daniel, holding my hand, whispering, "You're stronger than anyone I know," while tears streamed down his face. He stayed up with me through endless nights of feedings, changed diapers, and somehow managed to keep going to work in the morning. Daniel was kind, thoughtful, and so loyal. It almost embarrassed me when Lily compared her string of failed relationships to what I had. But looking back now, maybe that's why it hurts so much to see him change. Because we weren't just husband and wife. We were a team. We had survived our 20s together, building a life out of nothing. We had a sweet little house, a 7-year-old boy who adored his dad, and a rhythm that worked. We didn't have wild parties or exotic vacations, but we had late-night takeout on the porch, movie marathons in pajamas, and afternoons chasing Noah around the yard. That life was enough for me. It had always been enough. So why wasn't it enough for him anymore? Those nights when he said he had to travel for work, I would lie in bed and remember the boy who used to write songs for me, who once promised he would never hurt me. I could still see him sitting on the edge of our bed, tuning his guitar, smiling at me like I was the only person in the world. That memory used to feel like home. Now it felt like something slipping through my fingers, something I might never get back. I tried to rationalize it. People change. Jobs get stressful. Marriages evolve. But deep down, I missed the man who once held my face in his hands and said, "You're my whole life, Hannah." I missed the simplicity of those early years when the only secrets between us were what kind of birthday cake I was planning or what song he was learning for me. For years, I held on to that image. Ethan holding a baby with his eyes and my smile. I thought it would happen for sure, like the sun rising after night. That's why the struggle later hurt so much. We weren't just losing a dream. We were losing something we had already pictured so clearly in our minds. But thinking back to those early years helped me breathe on the nights when everything felt too heavy. I reminded myself that our relationship wasn't built only on the idea of having children. It was built on respect, laughter, and a quiet love that stays strong when life doesn't go the way you expect. Somehow, that gave me just enough strength to keep going, even when everything felt uncertain. After years of hoping and trying, something started to change inside me. It didn't happen all at once. It was slow, like water wearing away at stone. At first, I still believed that every failed cycle was just a delay, a test of patience. But as the months turned into years, I started waking up already feeling defeated, even before I took the test. I would stare at the single line and feel nothing. Then the numbness would break, and I'd cry uncontrollably. The doctor told us we should take a break. My body had been through too much. All the shots, the medications, the procedures, it was wearing me down. He said that stress could ruin everything. That rest was just as important as treatment. But how do you rest when it feels like your whole life is on hold? How do you relax when every reminder, friends announcing pregnancies, baby showers, even a stroller in the grocery store, feels like a reminder that you failed? Ethan tried to help. He made dinner when I was too tired. He held me when I broke down. He stayed quiet when he knew words wouldn't help. But silence became our new way of talking. He stopped asking how I was feeling, maybe because he didn't want to hear the answer. I stopped sharing updates about appointments and lab work, afraid to see Hope leave his face again. We were still partners, but it felt like we were walking side by side in separate worlds. I started avoiding friends who had kids. It wasn't their fault, but I couldn't look at their lives without feeling empty. I'd scroll past baby pictures online and pretend it didn't hurt, but the ache stayed with me, day and night. I even stopped going into the yellow room. Dust began to settle on the mobile. The crib became just another piece of furniture, a painful reminder of what wasn't happening. One night, Ethan brought up adoption again. It wasn't the first time, but I had always said no before. I used to say it wouldn't feel the same. I thought a child had to share our blood to feel like ours. But that night, something in me cracked. Maybe I was just too tired, too worn down. I didn't snap at him like I had in the past. I just asked, "Do you think we could really do it? Raise someone else's child like our own?" He looked at me with a softness I hadn't seen in a long time. "Rachel," he said quietly, "any child we raise together will be ours. Blood doesn't change that. Love does." I didn't answer right away. The dream of a baby who looked like Ethan, who had my smile or his eyes, still clung to me. But I couldn't ignore the truth. I was tired. Tired of needles. Tired of pills. Tired of crying in the bathroom every month. Maybe adoption wasn't settling. Maybe it was just a different kind of miracle. Still, I wasn't ready to say that out loud. Not yet. So I kept it to myself and started small. I began looking at adoption websites when Ethan wasn't home. I scrolled through profiles of kids waiting for families. At first, it felt distant, like browsing something that had nothing to do with me. But then I started reading their short bios, their favorite colors, foods, what they wanted to be, their hopes for a mom and dad.